Welcome to the Manual Channel. I'm your host, Dan Gall, and today's guest is Leslie Krockenberger, Senior Cocktail Curator at Maker's Mark. Leslie is known for her innovative approach to mixology and her remarkable contributions to the cocktail world. But before we dive in, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. And with that, let's go. Leslie, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm super excited to talk with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what initially sparked your interest in mixology?
Yeah, so I think like anything else with building flavor, if you were fortunate enough to grow up in a household that had a lot of cooking, like I'm from Texas, so everybody in my family from the great greats on always cooked, and that was something that was shared. So I've always had an interest in cooking and flavor. And I was always taught that, food is what brings people together. And then as you get older, you realize that drinks are how they celebrate, mark that occasion. And so I think it was a natural progression for me to end up in a field like that.
I love it. And so what is the difference from going from food to like alcohol, spirits, and obviously food brings people together, like you said. I feel like also cocktails, liquor, drinks create memories as well because it's you're not just sitting at a table. You can almost do it anywhere if that well legal or not. How is that progression kind of influenced you and what's your inspiration for like getting into mixology?
So it was definitely not something that I thought I would do forever. It was definitely a quick way to make money. You could do it anywhere, you could do it anytime. It wasn't a full time commitment, so to speak. And that was if you were going to be a dilettante about it. And when I started to actually realize that I cared more about how something turned out and that I wanted to perfect that thing and that I was going to do the research to know the background, it all kind of that's really the difference between working at a dive somewhere and being a bartender, which is what you do in a dive bar, versus mixology is really that deeper seated passion, that understanding of history, all of those things that led you to the place that you then and there. I think that it was just something that I had a natural proclivity for, and I see flavor in a very different way. Like for me, I'm constantly formulating like how something's going to taste in liquid form. And we describe when you're drinking wine and beer and everything like that, you're using flavor notes that are food descriptors, and so it's a natural progression for you to take those things that are familiar, which are in food, and move them over into a liquid side. And what's funny is a lot of people there's a hard delineation there where they're like, I don't understand the liquid side of things, but really we're using a lot of the same concepts and methods and techniques that you use in the food world. We are just adjusting them to allow for, the magic of alcohol.
Yeah, and I think you're doing it in a really interesting way, which I want to dig into a little bit later. But you started out in Texas, like you mentioned, you grew up in Texas. I believe you started at least a single bar, but maybe a couple bars. Is that right?
I was in Texas for, the majority. I've been in Kentucky for 4 years, but let's see, I've been in this industry for 22 years now. So that first 18 years, I spent kind of working my way up in different types of bars. Everything, I started in dive bars as cocktail waitress and then did everything from fine dining, highbrow, lowbrow. I worked for a group in Texas that, opened they opened a lot of places at once, and unfortunately a lot of those places no longer stand, and that's a story for a different time and a lot more whiskey. Yeah, we opened up 7 concepts with them, and one of them was my personal bar, but in 2 years time I opened up 5 locations and oversaw 7, and they were all different concepts. They were everything from an ice house, which in Texas is a beer joint basically, that had food and beer, and it was very like low key and neighborhood hangout, all the way to Hunky Dory and Bernadines, which were our British pub version, our Southern Foodways version. My bar was a bar called Canard, and it was very forward thinking. It was basically my brain in a bar concept. And it was a good test drive for what I'm doing now. And I'm glad I got the opportunity to do those things because I wouldn't be here today without having spent the time there, learning, learning all the things there was to learn about.
Doing the grind, as I like to say.
Absolutely.
What was that transition like for you, coming from Texas and then ending up in Kentucky?
It was something that like me and my husband both work here. We both he didn't come to Makers initially. He actually moved over here with Beam Suntory and worked for Beam initially. I was more of a hey, so I'm coming too, and we moved here during COVID. So we came right as the world shut down, and it was I'm gonna say as bad of a time in the world as it was the best time possible for having an opportunity to start with a clean slate. We actually couldn't even sell cocktails at the distillery until like 2017. So I moved here in 2020. So there was only about, 3 or 4 years that cocktails were even available down at the distillery. So there wasn't a long time for there to have been something built up previous to me. But when I got here, obviously there's nobody left really. And so I got to start this program from the ground up. And as much as I said I didn't ever want to do that again, I think this ended up being the 13th place in my career that I technically started or opened or moved in that direction. And after you've done that a number of times, like as much as it's fun to take on that challenge, it is really trying. And especially in a time like COVID, like it was the last thing that I wanted to do. But I also was very excited for the opportunity because when else are you going to get to, you know, grow a program at a place as prestigious and as recognized as Maker's Mark? Like that will never come along again. This is hopefully the last version of something that I ever have to worry about that on. But I mean, if I'm going to do it, I was going to do it with a big brand and one of the nicest ones I could have chosen to be a part of or been allowed to be a part
Yeah, and Makers, the facility there is beautiful and stunning. The other impression I walked away with, because I spent some time out there, what was that? I think like a month and a half ago, is that the people there are pretty amazing people. You get to work with some amazing people on a day-to-day basis. I understand Blake Layfield, who I met when I was there. What's it like working with people like Blake and the Innovation Lab?
they're visionaries. I very much appreciate the support that I get from every team member here. The fact that everyone here will give you anything possible to make you successful. And it's just really nice to be in a place where you can come to work and you know that you're going to learn something new every day. You're going to work with people that you want to learn from. And then those exact same people are going to turn around and give you a leg up when you need it and give you an opportunity to continue to elevate yourself and grow your craft and to be successful. And so I'm in a group of people that are all successful in their own regard and want you to be successful as well. And it's a wonderful environment to be a part of. And it is really not something that you see often in the world of food and beverage. And because we're kind of this in this little bubble down here, I was able to take 18 years of, as you said, nose to the grindstone and come to a place that you can kind of, I call it being put out to pasture, but I don't mean that in the way that most people take it. You saw the grounds. This is the kind of pasture I would be put out. It's fine. There's whiskey everywhere. There's, beautiful scenery and wonderful people to work with. And it's just a dream come true. This is a dream job for any.
That's I mean, it's always awesome to hear that, and especially when you've been in the industry for so long and you end up somewhere that is kind of like a culmination of all your experience and allows you to grow as well. So kudos to you. I mean, that's because of the work you've put in, and an opportunity for us to learn from you as well. I think, and when you're working with people like Blake and the Innovation Lab at Makers, I'm just curious, are you part of that process when they are coming up with, say, like a new wood finishing series or something else that they're working on from a cocktail perspective as well? Are you involved in that? Are they reaching out to you to help with that?
So I get to work with Beth as well, and I have a really good palette, and I am able to describe in very fine detail, flavor nuance, and texture and all that. Because of that skill set that I have, I do get to be a part of those meetings, those blind tastings, And the best part is when all the hard work's done, which is the making the whiskey part, they turn it over to me and they're like, all right, now we want something. What I typically do is here at the distillery, the cocktails that you have when you come here are not necessarily geared for people to make at home. And that's by design. You know, if you can make it at home and you can have it anywhere, then what's the point of coming here? So we do versions here that I like to equate more to couture fashion. Like it's the wild ideas, it's the stuff that, you know, wow, that really gets you thinking, but it's not for everyone, so to speak. And then we'll do like kind of a ready to wear version. And the ready to wear version is the one that these are products that either are simply made or you can find like a commercially available version or a substitute for a combination of flavors. I oftentimes write recipes in both ways, the way that we're going to do it and execute it, and then the way that if somebody is trying to replicate it or get as close to approximation as possible, we send that version as well. That's kind of my role here outside of designing all the cocktails you have. I get to work again with Blake and Beth. And when we got a new whiskey coming out, they lean on me to how do we highlight these particular flavors in the whiskey and showcase the whiskey itself. So whereas maybe my cocktails at the bar have all kinds of things and it's all about that pursuit of flavor, sometimes when I'm working with like the wood finishing series that are higher end whiskeys, we strip those ingredients down and make it to where the whiskey is absolutely the star. And I'm just making little gentle edits around it to highlight certain flavors of the whiskey itself. So I'll approach cocktails differently with still using all the knowledge and learnings that I have coming into that, but just kind of apply it.
So when you're doing your day to day there, and I imagine it can be pretty busy, what are some of your most significant challenges that you've faced?
Not enough hours in the day and not enough of me because right now, so one of our major challenges here is our location. And as beautiful and stunning as our surroundings are, it is quite remote, as you found driving here. It is a hard ask to get people, especially in the service industry, to like, I live an hour and a half away. So I make that 3 hour day commitment to work in a place like this. So that's problem number one. However, what that's led to is the team that I have currently, which I want to be very clear, I've been here 4 years. We have only had a team in the last year. So for the first 3 years, me and like literally one or two other people carried this entire thing and we're doing everything. And only now am I starting to be able to like put all that on other people and be able to grow more. What it's led to is I really love bringing people up and giving people a platform and giving people the confidence to do what I know they're good at and what's inside of them. And I have a team of 6 women right now that most of which have never bartended or all they did was maybe work at like another whiskey distillery. And so their version of bartending was pouring whiskey in a glass, not doing the things that they're doing now. And so they had to start with this level. And so we kind of had to reapply the strategy as how you train somebody to be able to execute these things without having those standard building blocks of years in the business. Again, a challenge, but not in a bad way, but a very interesting take on what you have to do to get a program running in a place that's far removed from, you know, normal foot traffic, and we're not surrounded by a bunch of other bars. So bartenders aren't popping by and saying like, oh, hey, I want to be a part of this. We like to say we're the best kept secret in Kentucky. And as cute and fun as that is, hopefully that's not forever.
Yeah. And part of that too is I feel like because you're not next to another bar and you're in kind of like a location that is exclusive, I would say, right? Like there's not a lot around there that you get full attention of people. You have an opportunity to actually give them something that provides a conversation and influence, I would say, right?
Agreed. Captive audience for sure.
Yes. Yes. And I was definitely captivated out there because you also pair it with some amazing food. If people have never been out to the Maker's Mark Distillery, I personally did not know what I was walking into when I went out there, and it was kind of a funny story. Was we were at the hotel bar, not in Laredo, but in Louisville, Louisville. I never know how to say
You
Louisville,
gotta say it like you're drunk on bourbon. You gotta slur it. It's Louisville.
Louisville, Louisville.
Yes, go.
We asked them like, what's your favorite distillery? Like, which one should we go to? We had not talked to them at all about what we were doing, and they were like Maker's Mark for sure. And it was all about the experience out there, and it was actually pretty amazing. So I walked in there with an open mind and was kind of blown away. And I feel like that kind of leans into what I want to know. You were just talking about starting out with no team, and now you have a team, and kind of being able to mentor others within the team. What do you consider your biggest win or your proudest moment since being at Makers?
Definitely building this program from the ground up, coming from something non-existent, and each day getting better, being able to encourage that growth and getting people excited, people that didn't care about, they just had a job before. Now these people have a passion and they truly care. They're nerding out on the library of books that I have. They're going off on their own and figuring out, like, how to ferment this, and what sort of mothers and koji starters to use here. Like, we went from pouring whiskey in a glass to now we're growing a drink, basically. And that's really amazing to have shown people something that they didn't just kind of let roll off their back. They're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, they truly took interest and took it on themselves to get better and to keep moving with that. And I would say definitely some of my proudest moments when we want every time we launch a new menu, I have a new reason to be proud of them. And they're so creative and they're so driven. And I'm really happy to have those people here and to be able to be a part of their lives. I will say that I guess one of my personal, like for me, my proudest moment, I got made a Kentucky Colonel by the governor from that jam cake old fashioned. He was here on site to pick a barrel. I ended up with a Kentucky Colonel title, which they do a lot with charity. And again, what other state can you live in that you can get an honorary title like that? And it just, like, what a cool thing. And, being from Texas and being proud from, I'm proud of being from there, but now I'm a colonel in Kentucky. So,
What is first off, what does that mean? Like, I've never heard of that. So what does
so,
that mean?
so initially it is, you're supposed to be nominated by an existing colonel, or colonels, and it goes up through the government. And it's a way to recognize people that are doing good things in Kentucky, whether that's ambassadorship or good stewardship or making a cocktail that the governor was into. It's definitely sort of a cheeky title. However, it ties into charity and they do a lot of work around the state. And so it was nice to get inducted into that club. Basically, they do a barrel pick with us every year. And so we are looking forward to doing more work with them on the side there. And so, like, what a great thing to be a part of.
I love that. I would totally be playing that up as like, you got to address me as Colonel Leslie
Colonel.
or Colonel
Yeah.
Krockenberger.
You
Uh,
get a license plate and everything.
really?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
they have a whole, like, if you go to the website, you can check out, there's all kinds of swag and stuff like that. And it's a cool thing, and like you get to call your mom and tell your mom that you're a colonel now.
I feel like one, I did a disservice to you during the introduction. I should have totally brought you on as a colonel. And the other thing is, I feel like I need to salute you. That is such a cool honor.
Yeah,
That's amazing. So like, it sounds like one, obviously getting that title is a huge achievement.
for sure.
I'm proud of you. That's amazing. The other thing is the positive impact on the people around you and the people that look up to you. That's always amazing to hear when people can do that. You're helping them become part of that creative process of mixology at Makers. What is your creative process when you're coming up with new recipes, a new menu? You actually have a quote of in pursuit of flavor, which I love that because a lot of people, like you mentioned, from a cookie world, that is a big thing, obviously, and from a cocktail and mixology standpoint, I think that's probably one of the most fun things about wine, cocktails, beer, etc.
We like to say that bourbon is an agricultural product and that it's grown, not made. And so we kind of start with that. And you saw the grounds here, you saw our incredible garden and everything like that we have going on. So that's absolutely a source of inspiration. I try to do cocktails here, especially during growing season. We say from seed to sip, garden to glass, and nature distilled. We really use every aspect of this property to pull inspiration. I obviously have things in our innovation garden. We have our production garden across the road that does the heavy lifting for the things that work out in innovation the year before. Like, it's taken 4 years for us to have the ingredients that we have here on site, because we had to figure out if they would work here. We had to, it's all up to nature as to how it turns out. Like, we had a really great yield last year of a very particular type of melon. This year that yield will be as strong, so we take those things into consideration. We also have been trying to limit the amount of ingredients that I have shipped in. So we figured out how to grow those things. So up in our orchard, we have all types of heirloom varietals of apples and things like that. We've pressed those apples. We actually have an apple cider vinegar that's been aging for a year that was pressed with apples that grew here. Last year, we actually put them in the original barrel that the first batch of Maker's 46 was ever made in. So that's aging in our cellar right now. And then I will take, once that vinegar's done, I'm going to take that barrel and we're going to make an old style cocktail from 1700s called a switchel. Like, I always have a plan and an angle for things that we're doing, and it's stuff that you couldn't do anywhere else. Like, who else has a cellar to age this in, or an apple press, or any of those things, So I'm getting to play on a scale that I've never had the opportunity to work with before. And the things that we can't grow here, we forage, and I figure out ways to replace the other things. Like, one of the other things we're working on in our program that I think is really unique to us, we strive for 86% of the place. And so that means that we're trying to use 86% ingredients that were here on site or were brought in within a 60-mile radius. So sugar obviously doesn't grow here, and neither does citrus. So we have been working over the past year to really reduce the amount of actual Caribbean grown sugars that we're using. And we're doing that with the honey and sorghum that grow here on site. I've found ways of modifying those two ingredients to mimic other flavors. So, for instance, our sorghum, I take fenugreek, which we grow here as well. I take fenugreek and candy cap mushrooms, which grow wild on the West Coast. We've been able to work on them in our mushroom quarry here. And I can make that sorghum taste like maple. I can change the honey to be more floral. And I've utilized, like, in the springtime between honey cycles, I make a version of honey with apple juice and dandelion flowers. Like, I've figured out ways to really remove the amount of stuff we're trucking in. And as far as citrus goes, I have it's an organic acid blend that is considered shelf stable. And so it's all the naturally occurring acids that you find in citrus fruit, but they're all powdered form. And so we put those in a base. And then what we do is we add back the citrus oils that they come from. So I have an orange, a lemon, and a lime version. And we're taking the citrus that we do have, that I'm getting scraps from the kitchen and whatnot. We peel those peels, and I have a freeze dryer. We freeze dry that, and we add those peels back in. So again, it's one step removed from composting, from trash, from all of that. We're constantly striving for ways to make our process more efficient and to literally squeeze every drop of everything out of everything we're using and to try to reduce waste. What a cool opportunity to be able to, again, do that on such a large scale, because this isn't like we see a few people a day. We see 150,000 visitors a year. So we're doing this on a platform that is a wide reach, and that's, I think, really cool.
It sounds like you're running your own innovation lab and you're doing your own food chemistry. A viewer is watching this and goes, that seems so far out of reach for me. Like, how does somebody get to the point where you're at, where you're able to experiment and think about ingredients in that way?
You should be blessed with the ADD that I have, because it never turns off, ever. I am one of the most annoying human beings to have to sit next to. If I'm constantly working on flavors, I'm constantly thinking about drinks. I can be in the middle of watching a show. We're trying to, like, relax and not think about work at home. We're watching a movie, and I will just randomly start spouting off about a flavor component, or like, hey, what do you think about I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, if I put these things together, do you think that I could get the same amount of mouthfeel here and there? And my husband's like, can we not talk about work? It's 10:30 at night. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I have literally written cocktails in like this half dream state where I'll like kind of like half wake up from a dream. I have this idea, I scribble it down, then I will like work on that the next day. I go down aisles in grocery stores. One of my favorite places to look at inspiration is to go to any type of ethnic market of any type. And I just wander the aisles and I just look at things and I just buy stuff I find interesting and I figure out how to work with it later. And a lot of those, I've just built this encyclopedia, in my brain, and I don't have a whole lot of room for anything else. Like, I'm not technically savvy, as you guys saw earlier, so there's none of that there. I've kicked all of that out. This is all flavor is going on constantly. So I would say we have the beauty of the internet, and there's lots of people, putting good content on YouTube and stuff. If these are things that you find interesting, absolutely like go down some rabbit holes, and not all the information is good information, so you're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. There's so many people out there now sharing all of the quote unquote garden secrets and magic. Like, none of that stuff needs to be kept on the DL. Like information made to be shared. It's how we grow our industry. It's how we continuously get better. So that stuff's out there. Like, if you're willing to wade through a lot of the nerdy aspects, like all that.
Yeah, I feel like it's also a lot of trial and error, right? Like
For
failure to
sure.
get to learn
Oh
about
yeah,
what works, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned the swizzle earlier when you were talking about apple cider vinegar, and one of the things I'm doing just to get more knowledgeable around the cocktail scene is making cocktails on my own that aren't just the normal, like I'm making a margarita or I'm making a
Yeah.
Negroni or something like that. And I made a watermelon swizzle a couple weeks ago for a reel for our channel, and I was blown away because, like, for me, I never realized that like vinegar or apple cider vinegar could be used in a cocktail in a fun, interesting, and delicious way. And it blew my mind, to be honest. I'd never had a swizzle before. So one, what a weird coincidence for me for you to mention swizzle. And
Well,
two,
and
the ingredients can be pretty much anything. I feel like can be.
yeah.
It's just all about experimenting, right?
Well, and you're in Portland, right? Like,
Yeah.
you guys used to have Pock Pock up there, and Pock Pock made the best drinking vinegars ever. Like, anytime my friends would visit, they'd be like, "Hey, what do you want from Portland?" And it's like, "Oh my God, bring me back Pock Pock drinking vinegars." Like, you guys had like the creme de la creme up there for a long time. I'm sorry that place is gone, but they do have the cookbooks, and so they do have the way to do that.
Yeah, you know what? I think they might still be in existence in Vegas, in a hotel. But yeah, like that's what the amazing thing about Portland is that the food and alcohol scene here is so excellent. It's we get spoiled here, I would say.
For sure. I got to visit, I was in Portland Cocktail Week, a few years back now, but Les Pigeons, obviously one of the best. I mean, the profiteroles, I ate those foie gras profiteroles every single day that I was there. And I'm glad that I was only there for a few days because I'm gonna, I don't know, I don't know how that would have worked out for me long term health wise, but yeah, man, you guys had incredible food. There was, obviously great breweries. Like, that was also fantastic. And then being there with Portland Cocktail Week, it was, a great week of fun and learning. So yeah, I would love to visit Portland again.
Yeah, you should definitely come here. And let me know when you do. I'm happy to take you around and we can have a great time.
I'm gonna take you off on that. Your liver better be in good shape, though. That's all I gotta say.
Oh, it's gonna die by the time you leave.
You can grow a new one now. Just take
Yeah,
a
right. Like maybe I
start it
should
like
take a sliver right now and save it for later.
yeah, we'll put it like an avocado seed. Just put it in the window in a vase. You're good.
Most people don't succeed in growing avocados. I might be in trouble. So, one thing I found really interesting is you have mentioned a particular philosophy. White lion, I believe, is how you pronounce that, but it's the creative or the creativity is the discipline to forgetting all that you know. Um,
Yes.
and how has that influenced you? And I know that comes from a specific book. How has that influenced your approach to mixology?
I definitely feel that you need to know the rules before you can break them. I do feel that in our industry, for you to receive recognition of your peers. It's very important that you put in the work before. So I do feel that it's important for you to understand the classics, where everything came from and all of that. But I'm not a classics person. I absolutely know, love, and appreciate the structure and the history of what got them there. However, I don't leave it just at that. I don't like to do, when I do a 3 ingredient cocktail, there's really 20 ingredients in one of the ingredients, and then I make those things 3 ingredients. But I feel that that mantra there is, about being open to the impossible. And, that is what allows you to pursue things that you normally wouldn't, is to forget about all of the preconceived notions that you have and just like go for it. I think that in 22 years in this industry, and this is a very hard thing as a human, this is, part of the human condition. You're constantly worried about what everyone feels and thinks, but I feel like to go somewhere in this industry, you just have to like live life in a genuine way and do your job passionately and in spite of what other people think. White Lion did exactly that. And the way that, so I met those dudes in 2012 before the Lions existed. And when they told me the concept of the bar they wanted to open, it sounded so insane. They were like, no ice and no citrus. And we were like, but why? And they were like, we have this whole concept. As I got to know them and when I got to go to the bar and like see it in action and like really understand what they were trying to do and the envelopes they were pushing, I was like, those guys did it. That everyone was just kind of shrugging it off, like that's weird. Like, what a weird idea. Like, ice is the most important thing in a cocktail, yada yada yada. And like, yeah, in classics it is. But these people were not satisfied with just doing classics. These people wanted to push the envelope and to see what was out there. And like, I would definitely say that, Chetty and Ian, were the two guys that started it. They have played a huge role in how I have acted since meeting them. And it was definitely, I came back a different person from Edinburgh, which is where we all kind of interacted together the first time. I was in Houston at the time, and people weren't really sharing knowledge. Everybody was still very covetous of all their, like, oh, you can't have my ginger beer recipe. It was all these things that were just like silly to be weird about. And when I was over there, anybody would tell you anything that you asked about because they wanted to also know that it was important for you to also share. And the cocktail competitions that we were doing over there, like we were at Bramble, and the guys that own Bramble closed down all their other bars so that all the bartenders could come and be supportive. And that was the first competition I was at that I wasn't nervous because it wasn't all about winning. You were having fun. It was the first time I had fun at a competition. It completely changed the way that I was going to handle anything. I brought that energy back to Houston. I was very open. I love to share things. I love to encourage people to be a part. And there was a time when Houston was booming with, there were just roving bands of bartenders that were going to different people's bars, and you saw like all this interaction and all this growth and all this like sharing of information. And like, that is really something when you see that, and it's no longer this like, secret society that only certain people can be a part of. Like that, those guys have influenced me, and I'm sure many, many others, like in a way that they'll probably never truly understand. But I'm very thankful that people like that were out there, and I met them at the time in my career that I did, because it set me on the path to get to where I am today.
And it sounds like you're also continuing that philosophy with the people that you work with there at Makers.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. The wine industry here in Oregon is known, I would say, for a similar thing in terms of not necessarily that quote, I think, but more of sharing of information and supporting the others in your industry, right? Instead of having that walled garden, but oh, you need help. How can we help? Oh, like there's stories here about short on staff, and we have that limited time to harvest grapes, and other people from different vineyards and wineries will come and help that person so they don't lose their crop. Things like that provide strength within the community, and just makes it better for everybody, right?
Rising tides lift all ships. I absolutely, so, I worked at St. Arnold Brewery. That's, my husband and I worked there together too. That's kind of where we first met. Brock Wagner, the owner of St. Arnold, he is that man. Like, he was, St. Arnold was the oldest and largest craft brewery in Texas. Brock was the guy that everybody came to for help, for advice. There were times where there were hop shortages, or a new brewery starting out. They didn't order the right amount of something and they needed help. Brock would loan that to them. He would help make sure that they were on the up and up and that they were going to be successful. And he did everything he could to make sure all the people around him were successful. And he fought to change laws in Texas to allow breweries to even sell beer to the public. Like, Brock has done a lot of work for both in the industry and better view of beer in Texas. And I will forever be grateful to have gotten to work for a guy like that. Like, Brock's a really nice dude, and I'm very thankful that I was able to have that in the beginning and kind of see that example. And beer's different than spirits for sure. It's much more laid back. What a great brand to be a part of. And, being able to say that somebody like that was, able to influence me as well. And again, set an example of what happens when you're the one everyone looks up to. Like, it's part of your duty to ensure that everybody is able to continue and to grow. And like, he wore that crown well.
And that type of influence comes full circle, usually, like if you treat others well, it comes back tenfold, is like they say, right? So it's great to hear that that's part of your influence, and how you've been influenced, and to continue that legacy. And I want to get back on the creative side. You shared a cocktail recipe with me, called Ready to Wear. You mentioned that earlier. I had
It's
that
actually,
cocktail.
it's
What's
actually
that?
jam cake old fashioned. What you ended up with, which I didn't realize, was you have the ready to wear version.
Yes.
So it is technically the jam cake old fashioned.
Jam cake, old fashioned. And I had never had a jam cake before. I didn't even know what it was until we had lunch out there at the distillery. And that jam cake, old fashioned, was absolutely stunning there. So I'm stoked that I got the version of that I could actually make at home, because I know the effort that you all put into the ingredients of that is not something I could easily replicate. Here at home. But I have that. I've tested it out and tried it. It tastes absolutely delicious. Could you share with me the inspiration behind that cocktail and what made it so special for you?
The way, I told you that I'm very into cooking, and I grew up around that, and that was like a big deal. So the way that I learn about places, if I've never been there, or when I moved here, is through old cookbooks. So during COVID, obviously there wasn't a whole lot going on. So a few places were available for you to roam through, and a lot of those were antique shops. So I went to antique shops and I bought a bunch of cookbooks, and I tried to learn about the history of Kentucky cuisine, so I knew what sort of flavor profiles that I was going to be making here on site. In Texas, everything's spicy, everything like margarita, like, we know what flavors to expect there. Here, I wasn't quite as familiar with, like, okay, well, what stands out? So I discovered what jam cake was, and I had it in a few different cookbooks, and so I made a version of one the first time, and I was like, okay, this is good. And then I had one that we had a benefit here at the distillery for someone, they were raising money, and there was one on an auction table, and I picked it up, and it weighed like 40 pounds, and I was like, oh, this is a jam cake, got it. And so I made another one and kind of went back through my books. And so ultimately what a jam cake is it's a spice cake that's served in like a bunch cake form. Sugar was very expensive and hard to come by back in the day. So oftentimes they would cut the sugar for the cake recipe with jam, and blackberries are in peak season in July, and it's kind of the star of Kentucky. It's like the fruit that grows here, and they used to have festivals surrounding it and all that stuff. So a jam cake traditionally in Kentucky is made with blackberry jam. And then they have this caramel icing that is drizzled on top. So I went about the version that you had is year 3. It took me 3 years to nail that recipe. I kind of messed with flavors and the way that how I was going to impart those flavors. I was making cordials and stuff like that. And then I landed on the way to make the one that you had. And it starts out with, you got to make one ingredient that is homemade caramel coloring, so you're scorching sugar there, and you got to hit all these temperatures and timings, and it's a balancing act. I ruined a lot of batches first. Like, there were things that went overkill and turned into solid blocks of stuff we couldn't use. And the day that I knew that I nailed that recipe, I was cooking the caramel, the spice syrup that we washed the whiskey with. And one of our bourbon specialists walked in the back and she goes, well, I don't know what you're doing back here, but it smells like my grandma's jam cake. And I was like, you really have no idea what I'm doing. She goes, no. She goes, it smells like jam cake in here. And I was like, okay. So I knew that I was like, that I got it. And so I made it to where I still wanted the whiskey to come through. It's really important not to make old fashions too sweet. So there's the balancing point. And then I wanted to highlight, the beautiful fruit that we had available to us. So I took the caramel and spice and we washed the whiskey to highlight the vanilla and caramel in the whiskey itself. Then I make a blackberry cordial that is a combination of 6 or 7 different ingredients, our house grown blackberries here that are these incredible, gigantic, super sweet. Like I've never had blackberries like this in my entire life. So we wanted to highlight those features and then still put them together. And then the last little bit that we add is we do use a bit of simple syrup in this recipe, but we treat it slightly differently. We take some barrel staves from the private select process and I chop them up. We stick them in the syrup bags and I put it through an ultrasonic, which is a parts cleaning machine. And it basically rapid ages. If I were to rest this in reverse, put the syrup in a barrel, it would have to sit for months to get the flavor. In about 15 minutes, I can get the same amount of tannin extraction and wood sugar extraction. So again, I'm constantly pulling something from the whiskey making process. When we do cocktails here, I always try to pull something from there. So we're keeping it, a concentric circle going, the whiskey's coming into the drink, but I'm also, putting it back out there as well.
It's
So
a thoughtful
sort of,
thoughtful process, right?
yes.
Yeah. So like the version I have is obviously a very simplified version of what you just described.
I'll
Uh,
send you the whole recipe. You are more than welcome to knock it out. I think you should try it. It's not terrible. It's just you got to hit temperatures, you got to hit times. That's the only thing.
I would love to try it. That would be my own experimentation of can I make this or not. But
I believe in you. I think you can.
thank you so much. I will draw from that confidence and inspiration. But the recipe that I have is, I mean, you call it ready to wear, right? Or is
Yeah.
it the jam cake old fashioned? How are they different?
So my version, the 3-4 page version of ingredients that I'm going to send you, that's the Couture version. The version that you got is this one. Most people will be able to get. They won't lose focus after they see that 3rd page and be like, how am I supposed to get all this stuff? Like, it's really not that much stuff. It's no more than if you make a gumbo or if you're baking a cake. It's really about the same amount of ingredients. People just freak out because it's a drink. They're like, oh my God, this is too much. I chose simple things that were readily available, easily accessible. Most people may even have them already in their pantry, and will still showcase the flavors that we're working with and make it to where you can complete this task and not be put off by it. Like I would much rather you get to the end and be like, okay, I could do that. Now I'm going to try the harder version. You know what I mean? Like it kind of baits you into that. That's really the way that I work. Is I definitely simplify it because let's be real, not everybody has a couple of hours or longer to mess with creating the stuff. Versus I just want this drink and I want to drink it soon.
Well, you did a great job with it because I made it, and well, my wife made the syrup,
Yeah.
and then I made the cocktail, and it was absolutely delicious, and it wasn't hard to make at all. So I'm super excited to share that. By the time this video comes out, I will have a reel done on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, so people can follow along and make that. And I'll have the recipe in that the more basic version of it in there. So hopefully we can share the goodness of this. One of the best tasting and simple recipes that I've been able to make so far, right? It's not just pulling it out of a recipe book, right? Like, and it's not complex. Like I've had drinks that I've had to make that were like 15 steps, 3 pages long, not
Yep.
quite, and then end up not tasting that great. And this one was like, wow, this tastes amazing, and it wasn't hard. Like it literally took me 30 seconds to make once I had those ingredients. So,
And what do you
um,
guys have there? You guys have boysenberries?
we have boysenberries. I've got wild blackberries on my property.
Oh man,
I don't know what the state berry is here. We have huckleberries, I believe. We got a
love
lot of different
berries.
berries. Yeah.
That recipe is absolutely doable for you to use like what's close to you. So if boysenberries and blackberries work for you, like use those. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is an adaptable recipe for that. And so, you know, the idea is to, again, just kind of have some building blocks of some framework to use and just swap like for like, and figure it out. Like you may accidentally come across some really great combinations that you're like, huh, never would have done that. This was accidental, but totally worked out. Like those are the happy accidents, are some of the best kind.
I love it. So basically experiment with the different types of berry syrup type stuff and
Absolutely.
and that sounds like a lot of fun. Any amusing or fun mistakes or unexpected successes you've had while creating cocktails?
I mean, a lot of my things are both amusing successes and mistakes at the same time. Like I definitely, when I first started out and was like trying to do cocktail competitions and things, I didn't work. I either didn't work at a place that had set ingredients, or I was working in beer and so wasn't around liquors and stuff. So I would oftentimes write a recipe in theory and never have made it until the day of the competition. And so I like to say that I used to practice theoretical mixology a lot. What I would do is I would go to places that I knew had the ingredients that I wanted to work with, and I would like sample it. I'd be like, can I get a pour of this? And I would roll it around in the glass, and I would see the weight. I would see how it would behave, and I would use that and bank that flavor profile, and I would figure out how I thought I would build it in theory. And so a lot of things I did, I was like, oh, so that worked out. or like, or I would do something super technical like the night before, something I had never made it before, but I was like, yeah, this is really cool. I could knock out this. Like, you know, I'm gonna make these isomalt edible spoons and gold leaf them here, and like it'll be totally fine. Like I would say the most insane thing that accidentally worked was I did a competition once where I made a version of a Pim's cup, and I took Avery Maharaja and I took some of the yeast and cultured that, and then made a ginger beer that went back into my cocktail cultured from the Maharaja yeast. And then I took it one step further and I made edible Pim's chutney ink. One of the ingredients in the cocktail was a Pim's chutney cordial. I took that, added glycerin, made an ink to it, and you know how photo plates with a you have to do the photo exposure like in your closet with the lights and stuff. Well, my husband basically made a very makeshift dark room in a closet upstairs, and I went to an art supply store. They literally gave me these 25 plates because they were like, we don't even know if they're going to work because they're old. And we did a page of a Rudyard Kipling, the novel, or the drink was called the Kipling Cup. And we did a page of a Rudyard Kipling book that we burned like 10 plates and one of them turned out. And then I printed that ink onto this edible potato paper, and it was like the side piece of the cocktail. And everybody was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, yeah, I had no idea this was even going to work. Like, I was literally working on this until like 2 or 3 in the morning the day before the competition. And it was just like, I have to have this. This has to be the thing. And he's like, how do you come up with this stuff? Like, why can't you just do something normal? And I was like, yeah, but like everybody else is doing normal stuff. So this is my, so I would say, I don't know, I just come up with like just crazy. I just do it. I just push the envelope. Oftentimes it turns out, sometimes it doesn't, but you still got to fake it. If so, you still got to pretend that that's the way you want it to be. I've just like really had fun with it, and I try not to take things too seriously. I am serious about my craft, but at the end of the day, like this is silly. This can be fun. Like that, like people should have fun with this. That's the important part. If you're not having fun with it, you're doing it wrong.
Well, and I mean, and failures lead to success, right? And that just
Yeah,
sounds like dedication, is what that sounds like.
insanity.
Mad scientists, right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I should have the mad scientist colonel locked down in the basement, just doing crazy stuff.
just throw me a
Um,
bottle of chartreuse. I'll stay down there as long as that bottle lasts.
then you got to come up and get another.
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna go into a rapid fire round, and hopefully you're ready for this. It's not too hard.
gotcha.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Favorite cocktail?
Scotch,
Wow,
not a cocktail, just scotch.
Scotch. Well, that goes into my
Yeah,
next question, which is favorite
yeah,
spirit to work with.
scotch. I'm okay. Look, real talk. I have learned to appreciate bourbon to the same degree that I love Scotch whiskey, but I will always and forever be a Scotch.
You're gonna have to teach me how to love scotch. Best
Oh,
cocktail you've ever created.
I'm gonna say the one that made me a colonel because like what other I've made a lot of cocktails and I definitely have a lot of favorites. It's like picking a favorite child. But I'm gonna say that since I've been here in Kentucky, I'm most proud of that one because it gets the most rise out of people that are from here. People like I mean it's Bill's favorite cocktail, it's now Rob's favorite cocktail, and they're not cocktail people. And to take guys that literally didn't believe in putting anything in a glass that wasn't whiskey before this, and the fact that every week Bill is up here asking for a bottle of it to take back to his house, I'm going to take that as the best cocktail I've created since I've been here for sure.
All right. One thing you love about Kentucky.
The people and the landscape,
What do you miss from Texas?
the food.
Yes.
Like nobody's ever going to compare to what was down there. But like I miss it. I'm thankful I can cook, but man, I do miss that food.
All right. What's a must-try cocktail everyone should experience at least once?
A Ramos Gin Fizz at the Sazerac Bar in New Orleans. You should have that drink at that bar, and that experience is unlike any other. You can have them anywhere else, but it's not the same.
All right. Speaking of Texas food, what's your favorite food?
I like everything. I'm gonna say though, you can't beat beef fajitas,
All
and
right.
specifically the way that they do it at Papa's, where you get drawn butter to dip your fajitas in on
Mm.
those homemade tortillas. That is like comfort food right there. It's comfort Texas comfort food 101.
I already ate lunch like an hour ago, and you're making me hungry again. Uh, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Well, it's going to be Scotland if I have anything to do with it. That is my end goal is to end up there somewhere. Maybe I'll get lucky and get to work for one of our companies over there, but I wouldn't mind living somewhere on the West Coast in one of the islands that has more sheep than people. It wouldn't be a bad place to end up for me. I like the cold, dreary weather, so it's perfect for me.
There you go. And you're close to Scotch then, right?
Absolutely.
All right, final question. We're done with the rapid fire, but before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with everybody?
I think that when it comes to cocktails and all of this stuff that we just talked about today, get curious about it, have fun with it. Like, don't be afraid of it. There's a lot of technical in stuff out there, and there's lots of people that are wearing suspenders and doing certain things. Like, don't worry about any of that. Make stuff that makes you happy and that you're happy to share with other people, and have fun with it and enjoy yourselves. And don't forget to hang out and enjoy the fruits of your labor as well.
What a great way to end this interview. Colonel Leslie Krockenberger, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and your wisdom. It was a ton of fun.
I'll see you in Portland.
You definitely will. And then for everybody else, check out our YouTube, our Instagram, or our TikTok on how to make the ready to wear cocktail. And thanks for joining. We are out.